Hey guys, welcome. This is my reaction series. I'm actually gonna do all of the Wansee entertainment I actually miss for March, and so let me actually get into it. So, ha- let begin.
Hey, Wansee. I'm so glad that I finally get to write to you. I've been wanting my story to be told on your channel for a while, but here's my story. My name's Lynn, and I've been dealing with some weird stuff lately, and I think I'm being haunted by something. It started last year when my friend came over for a sleepover, and she'd gotten these ghost hunting apps on her phone, and of course I didn't believe them, but I went along with it because it was something fun to do. After a while of messing with the apps, we got a lot of stereotypical responses that were most likely programmed into the apps. We eventually got bored and went to do something else. After a while, it was time to go to bed, and we slept in the living room. After being asleep for a bit, I woke up to my friend getting up and heading to the restroom, thinking nothing of it. I sat there, trying to go back to sleep. When she came back, we talked for a bit. Here's where it gets weird. But
I'm
5 minutes
actually
later,
gonna
I heard the bathroom
exit
faucet
and
turn
go
on full
back
blast.
on
Keep in mind that I
each
live in a
day.
small house with thin walls, so everything echoes and it can be clearly heard. So I got up, thinking I was imagining it. But when I got to the bathroom, I was indeed correct on what I had heard. Weirded out, I came back to my friend and asked if she had left the faucet on. She responded, no, and said that she for sure remembered turning it off. Confused, I knew it wasn't my sister or my parents because, for one, my parents have their own bathroom connected to their room and only use that one. And second of all, I knew it wasn't my sister because I would have heard the creaking of the floorboards and the distinct walking. After a while, my friend and I just shrugged it off, thinking we could think about it more in the morning. My friend had woken me up. We talked about it, and after she told me with nervous face, last night Oh, my name is
guys.
Alex, happen to be
Look
12
good.
years old. I live
You
in
actually
a very
want
area. It's full of people.
Okay, guys.
This isn't really a horror story, more like a glimpse into my parents' past before I was even born. Around 14 or 15, told me about my dad's dark side. But let's get straight to it. Before I was born, my mom and dad were a loving couple. Everyone in our hometown knew my dad well and respected him, if you could call it that. He was kind, loving, and a great person. Sometimes he had anger issues over little things. It wasn't anything too serious, or so I thought. One day, my mom was walking home after buying groceries. She was just minding her own business when suddenly she felt like someone was following her. When she looked back, she saw a creepy guy in a dirty white tank top just staring at her. My mom felt uneasy but kept walking, trying to ignore him. But then, out of nowhere, the guy picked up, walked to her, and slapped her on the ass.
Okay, guys.
One summer, I don't remember exactly
know why
when,
the dad
I remember
had
playing at my cousin's house,
the
which was
reputation.
in the same subdivision as mine. It was just the four of us, me, my cousin, and her two friends. I was the youngest. The house had 2 floors, so we liked to play hide and seek. Then we'd switch to watching cartoons until we got hungry, and then went downstairs to check if there was food. Well, there was no food available in the house, so we decided to buy Halo Halo, a famous dessert here in the Philippines, outside the subdivision instead. My cousin's house was a bit far away from the store, so we took a lot of time walking there. We bought one each, and then we decided to go home. Then my cousin thought that we should do something stupid. There was this big house with a big blue gate and a doorbell near the store. She said that we should do a ding-dong ditch, and the rest of us thought that it was funny, so we did. The side of the house had a small passage, so I went in there to hide while the 3 older kids did the ding-dong ditching. They rang the doorbell twice, and no one answered. On their 3rd try, a big, fat, bald guy appeared. He was shirtless with glasses and black shorts. He had a big tummy and white skin. Most importantly, he was holding a gun. The man looked like a foreigner, but he shouted,
"Why do you keep pressing it without stopping?"
Then he raised his hand and started firing. My cousin and her friends ran, but I was still there, so shocked I couldn't move. After a few seconds, I realized that I had to run too, or else I was going to very likely die there. I ran and I ran, but the other 3 were already very far away from me. I tried running even faster, even though I was scared and crying, could barely see. I wiped my tears, looked back for a second, and saw that he was pointing his gun at me. He fired. Fortunately, I tripped at that moment, and the bullet missed me. Then I stood up and ran even faster. When I reached the front of my house, I sat down and cried my eyes out. That's when my cousin found me, grabbed my hand, and we started running again. The bald guy still chased us all the way up until about the time we reached my cousin's house. When we arrived, her friends were already there. We locked the doors, closed the curtains, and hid. We saw the bald guy looking for us through gaps in the curtains. When he didn't see us, fortunately, he went away. I don't know if my cousin and the other 2 still remember this, but I still remember it. And I told my mom once. I often think about just how close I came to dying that day. I don't remember much about the incident, but I will try to explain it the best way I can. My name is Christopher. I was in middle school, and if I remember correctly, it was 2022, 2 months before summer break. My middle school had 2 stories and 1 elevator. Even though it was for staff only, some students got permission to use it. Most of my classmates in the school just liked to cause trouble, starting fights, vandalizing the restrooms for social media clout, picking on the other students. I wasn't one of those students. I was caring, kind, still am to this day, but that's not why I'm writing this. The day of the incident, I was sitting in my 2nd period math class. It was one of those average days, just listening to boring math info and solving equations. I didn't care much about it. Suddenly the intercom speaker came on. I figured it was some kind of administrative announcement, but that's not what it was. The woman from the office using the speaker sounded nervous. She said a teenage boy had entered the building with a gun. I was shocked, terrified to hear that. Looking around, I could see that my classmates felt the same way. The teacher told us to get in the corner while she locked the doors, shut the blinds, and turned off the lights. We were already quiet when she sat down next to us to wait out the lockdown. At this point, I knew it wasn't a drill. A few minutes passed and there was still no noise. However, it wasn't for long. This part had me shivering. I still feel it to this day. The silence was broken by the sounds of gunshots. Couldn't tell how many there were, probably 3 or 4 shots. They sounded far from our classroom, but soon we heard footsteps coming from the hallway. Some of the students started to cry, prayed for the shooter to just go away. The footsteps were getting closer, closer. Whoever was out there, they were almost at our classroom, but the footsteps stopped. For a moment, the other students were silent again. Then we heard, "Where are you?" I was so terrified at this point I thought I might pass out. The others were scared and crying as well, but then something unexpected happened. The shooter ran from the hallway, back to where he came from. Another few minutes passed and we heard the intercoms come on again. The office lady that was on before said the boy ran out of the school because he saw police cars coming. Needless to say, we were all immensely relieved. Later that day, we learned that the shooter was a male high school student. He was apparently very, very upset about something, but I don't remember what. When he came to the school with the gun, he went up to the second floor to the learning commons. He shot 4 times up into the air to get everyone out. The police said that they found and arrested him. He was ultimately sentenced, so we have the solace of knowing that at least he's off the streets. Hi, I'm Paru. I'm Indian, and this story happened to me when I was 14. Now I'm 24. I'm writing this from Kerala, South India. I've told this story to my family and friends, but no one believed me, so I'm sharing it with you. I never believed in paranormal activities and all of that stuff. Well, until this happened. After my 8th grade final exams, I decided to go to my aunt's house for a vacation. It was a farmhouse. My uncle is a farmer, raised a ton of goats, cows, chickens, dogs, and cats. My aunt lives in this big house. It had 4 bedrooms. I chose the big old room that belonged to my uncle's father. He'd passed away about 4 years ago. It was one of the best rooms and had an attached room. One night while I was sleeping, I just wanted to go to the bathroom to pee. And there was a bathroom window. When I looked out that window, I saw what looked like a goat's head. I thought I saw something wrong, just ignored it and went back to bed. But I felt anxious, couldn't sleep well. I don't know why. I just looked at that bathroom for no reason. Then there was a shadow. I thought it was just my imagination, and I tried to go to sleep. Fortunately, I did. And the next day, when I tried to sleep, I felt even more scared. Then when I went to sleep, I couldn't move because of sleep paralysis. And in that sleep paralysis, I saw a figure. Couldn't tell who it was, but I could tell that its eyes were red. The figure watched me for a few minutes, touched my nose. When it touched it, it hurt so much. I cried, tried to wake up from my sleep paralysis. When I finally did, the figure disappeared. I don't remember what happened next. When I woke up the next morning, I thought it was a nightmare. Didn't pay much attention to it. When I went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth and looked in the mirror, I freaked out because I saw a wound on my nose. I remembered that figure had touched my nose the night before. When I touched the wound, it hurt so bad, I ran to my aunt. I told her, and she laughed at me, made fun of me. Well, that night I slept in my aunt's room. And the next day I called my mom, and she took me home. I told my mom about the incident, and of course she didn't believe me. I told my dad, my brother, my classmates. They all think I'm lying. Well, was it really my imagination? And why do I have this scar on my nose? I really don't know. But what I do know is I'm sure I'm not lying.
Okay, I think that goat was a demon.
Hi, my name's Luke, and this is a story about what happened to me and my friends on a camping trip 3 years ago, when we were all between about 14 and 15. Since it was the beginning of summer vacation, my friend Lucy had this idea to go camping with her other friends, Katie and Maurice. As I was quite the risk taker, I added to the idea, saying that we should start our trip in the woods at 1 a.m., just for a bit of fun. I told Lucy, what's the worst that could happen? Now I look back and think how bad it could have been. But Maurice and Katie organized the supplies, 2 small tents, some snacks, and other camping equipment from my garage, while Lucy and I went out into the forest early to try to find a spot to set up. We'd been walking for a while when I suddenly heard this rustle in the bushes. I looked over at Lucy with a confused glare. What was that? Lucy asked me. I obviously had no clue, but being the cool guy that I thought I was, I peeked over the bush slowly. What I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. I immediately shouted in horror, trying to cover my mouth while staring at what looked like a middle-aged man eating a dead deer. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but this man was no hunter. This deer corpse was basically rotting, as you could see its ribs sticking out, and he was gnawing at it like a dog. It was a gruesome sight. Suddenly, this man turns around, saw me and Lucy, and immediately ran away on all 4s, leaving this deer carcass on the ground. Lucy immediately grabs me. We both run right back to meet Katie and Maurice, who were about halfway down our street with the camping supplies. Katie asked, why we looked so shocked, but it took us a few minutes to be able to actually get the words out. The sight had been so blood-curdling. For some reason, Katie and Maurice didn't believe us. They still wanted to go camping, so, stupidly, we returned to the woods. We went at least to a different spot. Maurice and I began to set up this camp in this big, flat area with a lot of trees surrounding it. It seemed cool, isolated, as the trees blocked all the sunlight. Being teenagers, we thought it'd be fun. Everything was going well, actually. We each drank a couple of beers, even though we weren't allowed. Maurice had stolen them from his dad, so we were all absolutely wasted. After a while, we decided to head into our tents. Of course, I slept in the tent with my friend Maurice, and the two girls slept in the tent across from us. At around 3:15 a.m., I think, I awoke to this strange noise. I was about to awake Maurice when I suddenly remembered that creepy man from earlier. I felt this chill shoot down my spine as I slowly unzipped the tent just enough to look through, but not enough for whoever was out there to notice. To my horror, I see this deer-eating man standing right outside my tent. To make matters worse, he was holding this small pocket knife. I unzipped the flap all the way, shouted loudly, and immediately punched him as hard as I could. Unfortunately, I was still wasted, and he managed to get a hold of me. He made this shallow cut right across my arm with that knife, but before he could do any more, fortunately, Maurice appeared and kicked him right in the crotch. The strange man let go of me, and I punched him multiple times until I knocked him out. Katie and Lucy tried to call the police, but there was no signal out where we were, of course. We grabbed our bags, leaving the tents and everything else behind, and just sprinted back to town. That night's mostly a blur at this point, but those are all the main points. Let's just say that if it wasn't for Maurice waking up right at that moment, and me deciding to scream, you wouldn't be hearing this story right now.
I cannot believe he was fixed to be eaten.
This happened to me about a year ago when I was 17.
This is the last one.
It was the middle of the day, and I was at a rehearsal for a sketch comedy group. It was lunchtime, and my friend, let's call him Ron, asked if I wanted to go with him to get something to eat. I agreed, got in the passenger seat of his car, and we started looking for a fast food place. Ron spotted a Wendy's nearby and asked if I wanted to eat there. I said, sure. When we got inside, there was a short line. One person in the line stood out to me. It was a man who looked to be in his mid-20s, African-American with a hoodie, gray sweatpants, and sandals. He looked normal, nothing out of the ordinary, but I had a gut feeling that there was something wrong here. Something about it just felt off. When it was our turn to order, the man left through a side door that was on the opposite side of the building from the entrance that we had used. We ordered our food, and Ron chose a table that was right next to the door the man had just left through. We sat down across from each other. I looked out the window. I noticed that there was a red bike parked right outside, but I didn't think anything of it. I reached into my bag to grab my food. When I looked back up at Ron, I froze. The man was outside the window, staring at Ron from behind. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, creeped me out, to say the least. Ron hadn't noticed him, but then I saw something that scared me. On his back was a holster, and in that holster was a machete. I looked back at Ron, lowered my voice. Ron, don't look behind you. There's a man staring at you from outside, and he has a machete. Ron's expression changed, but he didn't panic. He simply sat there and said, okay. We sat there quietly, not knowing what to do other than wait for the man to leave. We looked at each other and started to smile and giggle uncomfortably to lighten the mood.
Stop messing with
the man
the
finally
chicken.
moved after about a minute or two, and I watched him to see where he would go. He moved around to the back of the restaurant, pressed his face up against another window. Again, he stared at us with these wide, bloodshot eyes, and I could see the handle of the machete clearly. I tried to think of what I should do next, so I got up and went up to an employee, told him what was happening, and asked him to call the police. He gave me this lazy look and said that, I will. I went back to my seat and got an idea. I wanted to take a picture of the man to show the police, but I didn't want the man to know it. So I took out my phone and aimed it at Ron while very subtly angling it to get that creepy man in the background. Smile, I said to Ron. He seemed to understand what I was implying, and he faked a pose. After After taking the pictures, I noticed that the few other people in the restaurant still somehow hadn't noticed this man, so I got up and told them. And when they saw him, I could tell that they were frightened. They started to talk amongst themselves about what should they do. Well, I thought about trying to leave, but with the man outside, I did not want to take that risk, knowing who knows what he would do if we tried to leave. The man could also easily come inside and do God knows what, and I realized that we were pretty much trapped. The man still had his face pressed up against the glass, standing perfectly still, staring at us with these wide, bloodshot eyes. I soon realized that the worker had never actually called the police, because if he had, they would have been there by that time. So I got annoyed and decided to take things into my own hands. I took out my phone again and I dialed 911. As soon as I did, the man moved. My heart dropped. The man started to circle his way back around to the side door next to our table. I thought that he was going to come inside. Instead, luckily, he got on that bike that was parked right outside our window, and he rode away. I watched as he rode behind another building, and I breathed this sigh of relief. Ron got the restaurant manager while I described what the man looked like to the police. He told me that they would look for him, but they probably wouldn't be able to charge him with anything since he technically hadn't really committed any crimes. All they could do was ban him from the location. The police told us to stay put until they called back, so Ron and I sat down back at our table to finish our meal. And while we were eating, I was obviously afraid that the man would come back, but luckily he never did. We saw police in their cars outside searching for him. When the police finally called back, they told me that they couldn't find anyone who fit the description I gave them, but they were sure it was safe to leave. So I thanked them and hung up. When we finished our food, we carefully stepped outside and looked around to make sure that the man was truly gone. Then we dashed for the car, drove back to theater practice. I had to call our director and explain why we were 30 minutes late. When we got back, Ron and I had a good laugh about it with our friends about the experience, but I'm 18 now and the man has still never been caught. Ron and I tell the story from time to time. We think that he was some sort of ill, and I'm pretty sure that he was on some guys that were so bloodshot. Trying to think of